Good morning, postgraduate students. My name is Joseph. Please let's get to the third lecture on my own part of the course MSM 841. And in this lecture, we want to discuss institutional and regulatory framework for environmental protection in Nigeria. As a way of introduction, we need to create a background. The issue of protecting the environment started from our colonial masters. And it has been a very big developmental problem. Actually, the environment was deteriorating, and as we said earlier, development will always lead to generation of waste, and then you need to know how to manage this waste. If you don't manage it well, it will create some nuisance in the environment. So right from the colonial masters, okay, the issue of environment was taken very serious. Remember, there are these people that are called the public health inspectors during the time of the British colonization. In Igbo, they call them Ngole Ala. No, I think in Yoruba they call it something like Wole Wole. I'm not too sure. But they are public health inspectors where the health inspectors will come into your compound, check whether your pit toilet is okay, but then then it was just pit toilet. Whether you have actually evacuated your bucket toilet or you clean up your pit toilet. See whether you even have toilet at all or you just defecate around your compound. Check the environmental condition, the sanitary condition of your environment. So it started from that area. It started from that aspect of environmental protection. And if you are actually caught, defaulting, you'll be fined. Sometimes they can even lock up your compound. It was a serious matter. The public health inspectors, colonial hygiene of public health inspectors. That was when it started. Then in 1975, then we've gotten our independence. Remember, we got our independence in 1960. In 1975, a division was created, in the Ministry of Economic Development to deal with pollution and other industrial matters. Okay, that was in 1975. Because these issues are actually very important, and so a ministry or a division was created. The socioeconomic impact on environmental deterioration, poses a major problem to development, stability, and lifestyle. Because if your environment is not in order, there will be outbreak of diseases. Development will be hampered. Even human development will be hampered, stability of health, stability of social life will be hampered, and lifetime generally will be in danger. So it is not just enough to create standards. The last time we talked about standards, it's not just enough to create these standards, to create these set down rules. It is important to enforce compliance. Because in human beings, if you don't enforce, it won't work. It won't work. Even the most uncivilized humanity still needs enforcement before people could comply. At least from the beginning, they need to show some level of seriousness that so that people will be able to comply. By imposing fine and all the rest. So even more important is to give it a legal backing, okay, to give some institution a legal backing, so that it will not just be a political thing. create institutions, okay, back them up by legal structures to be able to carry out this enforcement. Because if they are not backed up by law, they are not backed up by law, definitely they will not be able to perform, and people will always flout, the rules, and nothing will happen because there are no legal backing, and there are no penalties for defaulting. Okay, so just as I was saying before, let's start from how this issue started. This issue of protecting the environment, how did it start? I said earlier that it started from colonial hygiene of public health inspectors, the wole wole, the umoleala, those people, from a colonial master, they come to your compound, they check whether the environment is okay. If it's not okay by their standard, they will be fined. Some compound could also be locked. But in 1975, after our independence in 1960, in 1975, a division was created. Okay, a division was created from Federal Ministry of Economic Development. Because the issue of environment was, inextricably linked to development. So this division was created to deal with pollution and other industrial matters. Then in 1988, something happened. And then this is what actually jump started everything about seriousness in the environmental issues. Something happened in a place called Cocoa. Cocoa is in Delta State. So some Italians, they had toxic waste, as a result of some form of production. They generated some toxic waste, and they didn't want to dump it in their own environment. They didn't even want to dump it into the sea. They felt that there's a place they can freely dump it. So they came to Cocoa in Delta State, and then they met with some of the chiefs. They gave them some hot drinks, and they like hot drinks, and some funny things, some poultry, and then those people gave them land to dump their waste. So they dumped their waste. 6 shiploads of toxic waste. 6 shiploads. 6 shiploads of toxic waste dumped. Okay, so they dumped it and they went their way. After that, problems started coming up. These things are toxic. They are radioactive, highly toxic. Problems started coming up, and then the a decree was now promulgated. That decree is called Harmful Waste Criminal Provision Decree 42 of 1988. Remember, we are talking of decree, okay? Because as from 1966 to maybe 1979, it was all military rule. Then from 1979 to 1983 was civilian rule. By 1983, towards the end of 1983, another military rule came up, and then by this present government, Buhari and the Diabo, they removed the Chagari administration. And then from that 1983 to maybe 1999, they were still. Anyway, so that's why we are talking about decrees. So in 1988, we are still under military rule. So we have Decree 42 of 1988. That decree is called Harmful Waste Criminal Provision Decree 42 of 1988, and it was promulgated because of the incidents of that happened in Cocoa, the dumping of 6 shiploads of toxic waste by Italians in Cocoa in Delta State in 1988. Okay, so I want you to follow the sequence. Okay, from colonial rules to creating a division from the Ministry of Economic Development, and then to promulgating a decree in 1988. Then in the same 1988, okay, FEPA was created. Okay, FEPA was created by Decree 58 of 1988. Remember, the Harmful Wealth Criminal Provision Decree was created by Decree 42 of 1988. FEPA was created by Decree 58 of 1988 as a parastatal of Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. Now, later, FEPA became further strengthened by Decree 59 of 1999, which actually led to the creation of Federal Ministry of Environment in October 12th, 1999. Federal Ministry of Environment was created under FEPA Act. Okay, FEPA Act of 1999. Federal Ministry of Environment was created under FEPA Act of 1999. Okay, and that was in 12th October 1999. Then the Federal Minister of Environment was now charged with overall responsibility of protecting Nigerian environment. Overall responsibility of protecting the Nigerian environment. So they came up with some regulations, some guidelines, and some standards. The first one is the National Environmental Protection Effluent Limitation Regulation S.I.8 of August 1991. Okay, it was under Section 40 that actually it was on 15th of August 1991. The 15th of August 1991 that this regulation was brought forth. And among other things, they were to regulate on the installation of anti-pollution equipment. Okay, anti-pollution equipment, where every industry shall install anti-pollution equipment for detoxification of effluents and chemical discharges emanating from the industry. So it becomes mandatory, or it became mandatory, that any factory, any industry producing waste should get installed equipment that will treat the effluent, okay, and with the intent of detoxifying those the effluents. All right. Though they also have the wastewater parameter, okay. They have the treatment effluents and a lot of things under that regulation. Basically, they are to install anti-pollution equipment. They have to treat the wastewater. They have to the treatment of effluent, okay, have to be regulated. And additional sectoral effluent limitation treatment is also captured in this regulation. Now, after that, you now have another regulation. That regulation is called the National Environmental Protection Pollution Abatement in Industry and Facilities Generating Waste. Remember, the first one is restricted to effluent. But please, at this point, I want us to get some differences. When you say waste, a waste can be in form of liquid, that is effluent. Okay, it can also be in gaseous form, and you talk of emission. It can also be in form of solid form. You talk of solid waste or litter. So these are different, and each of them have their own, different regulation guiding them. Okay. So, but the second one is called the regulation S119 of 1991. S19. So the not 19 of 1991. Among other things, among many other various things, they are to restrict on the release of toxic substances, monitor pollution units, and then monitor the discharge, and also discharge monitoring report. They have to also make sure that these industries will also get reports, get reports on what they are actually doing on as far as abating pollution, around in and around their industries or facilities is concerned. Then we also have the waste. We have another one, the Waste Management and Hazardous Waste Regulation of 1991. Okay, that regulates the collection, treatment, and disposal of solid and hazardous waste. Please, let's look at this very well. The first regulation, it has to do with effluent. The second regulation is more or less on toxic substances, and the third one is more or less on solid and hazardous waste. Then you have the guideline and standard for environmental pollution control in Nigeria of 1991, which directs industry to improve the quality of the environment, or more or less to recommend standards. Now, another guideline or standard or regulation instituted by Ministry of Federal Ministry of Environment is the Environmental Impact Assessment Act 86, number 86 of 1992, the EIA, now Environmental Impact Assessment, which requires the government agencies, and private enterprises to carry out EIA study of proposed project before any project is carried out, whether by the government, whether by the agent of the government, or by private enterprises. They must of necessity carry out an EIA. Now, from Federal Ministry of Environment, we want to get to NOSRA. NOSRA, remember that we say that Federal Ministry of Environment is actually charged with their overall responsibility. So they have some subunits or some agencies. So NOSRA is one of the agencies of the parastatal of Federal Ministry of Environment. NOSRA is not a ministry, is a parastatal under the ministry, the Federal Ministry of Environment. Now, NOSRA was established by NOSRA Act. NOSRA means National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency. I call them a child of circumstance because they just have to detect and respond to oil spill. That's why I call them a child of circumstance, which means that if there's no oil spill, they don't have work to do. But because we know that there must be oil spill anyway, so they have to be put in place. So they were established by NOSRA Establishment Act of 2006 as an institutional framework, to coordinate the implementation of National Oil Spill Contingency Plan at the NOSCP, National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. Now, this is in accordance with the International Convention on Oil Pollution Preparedness, Response and Cooperation, what they call the OPRC or OPPRC. Sometimes it's called OPRC. They remove the pollution. It's called oil pollution. They just use the O in the oil, and they say preparedness, response, and cooperation. So you cannot have OPRC. But I want us to get it very well so that not miss anything. You will now say OPPRC, oil pollution preparedness, response, and cooperation. 19, to which Nigeria is actually a signatory. Now, most of these international conventions, if you are not a signatory to it, then you cannot be held accountable. It is only when you have endorsed your signature. Unfortunately, Nigeria endorses signature in almost everything, and then they will not be able to to comply. And then if you don't, after appending your signature, definitely there are sanctions. Okay, but if you say I don't want to, just like what Trump did, he opted out from even the Paris Convention, he opted out from WHO, he opted from a lot of things, which Biden is coming back, to rejoin. So if you opt out, you can't be held responsible. All right. So Remember, we said earlier that NOSRA is a parastatal of the Federal Ministry of Environment. Then we have the NESRA. Excuse me. NESRA is National Environmental Standards and Regulation Enforcement Agency. It's an enforcement agency. Okay, so the NESRA Act 2007 was enacted in 31st of July 2007 to repeal the FEPA Act of 1999. Remember, the FEPA Act was what was used to establish Federal Ministry of Environment. Okay, and then it continued. It continued until in 2007, FEPA Act was repealed and replaced by NESRA. So if you are still quoting FEPA, it means that you are still working in the past. So there's nothing like FEPA again. NESRA Act of 2007 repealed FEPA Act of 1999. Okay, so it takes over the responsibility of FEPA. Remember, FEPA is Federal Environmental Protection Agency, and NESRA is National Environmental Standard and Regulation Enforcement Agency. So it took over the responsibilities of FEPA. Now, it is responsible for the protection and the development of environmental standards. Okay, and functions do not, however, please note, functions do not, however, include enforcement of environmental standards, regulation, policies, and guidelines in the oil and gas sector of Nigeria. Oil and gas sector, they are big guys. Okay, so they have their own standards, they have their own regulation, they have their own policies and their own guidelines. So NESRA can do every other thing, but when it comes to oil and gas, please stay away. We have our own standard, we have our own regulations, we have our own policies and guidelines. All right, so that takes us to DPR. DPR actually takes responsibility, of whatever has to do with regulations, whatever has to do with standards, whatever has to do with anything, okay, for the oil and gas. So DPR is a short form for, or the acronym for Department of Petroleum Resources. DPR is actually an agent of NNPC, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. So they are established to ensure the sustainable development of Nigerian oil and gas resources across value chain. So it's not just for production. It is also there for transport. It is also there for storage. Is also there for retail, like filling stations. They give permit, a lot of anything that has to do, they give guidelines, they give standards, they give regulations that those things that they told NESRA to keep off, to stay away from. DPR actually takes responsibility of that. So in form of bulleted, but it's not restricted to this. You can also go more and then get more information. This course is not about oil and gas, so it's about environment, it's about pollution. So we are restricting ourselves to some part. You might need to go deeper when you are talking about oil and gas in the marine environment. It's a different course. So they ensure the sustainable development of Nigerian oil and gas resources across value chain, ensures compliance to petroleum laws, okay, because there are international petroleum laws, regulations, guidelines in the oil and gas industry, not to conform with best practice, with international best practices. So they make sure that there's compliance. They supervise all petroleum industry operations being carried out under license and leases in the country, whether it's licensed, whether it's leasing. They are the one that take they supervise them. So that's why they supervise Shell, they supervise Chevron, they supervise O&O, Oando, and Seplat. A lot of them they supervise. any industry that is involved in petroleum activity. They also monitor the petroleum industry operation to ensure that they are in line with national goals and aspirations, including those relating to flare down and domestic gas supply obligations. Okay. They also their duty also include ensuring that health, safety, and environment, the HSE regulation conform with national and international based oil field practice. Okay, and that's why they also go offshore. And if you happen to have worked offshore, you must see a representative of DPR in a vessel. Okay, they also maintain records on petroleum industry operations. So the HFPSO, they are the one that take care of them. All in facility installations, they are the one that take care of them. They maintain records on petroleum industry operations, not actually taking care of them. They take record and they supervise. Okay, they maintain record on petroleum industry operations, particularly on matters relating to petroleum reserve, production, export, licenses, and leases. They also advise government and relevant government agencies on technical matters and public policies that may have impact on the administration and petroleum activities. All right. They also process industry application for leases, for license, and for permit. So if you want to get an oil block, if you want to start exploration, you have to get license or permit from them. They also ensure timely and accurate payment of rents, royalties, and other revenue due to the government. So they ensure that these oil companies or companies operating within the oil and gas will pay the accurate rents, royalties, and revenue to the government. Okay, they also maintain and administer the national data repository. So they will be able to tell us what is the quantity of crude reserve in Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Just as I said earlier, our concern is as long as it involves pollution of the marine environment, but there's a course on oil and gas, and you might get to know some more information as regard DPR and the oil and gas in general. All right. So these are some of the national agencies, national ministries, and so on. We talked about the Federal Ministry of Environment. We talked about the NOSDRA. We talked about NESDRA. We talked about DPR. But you can also have state-owned environmental protection agencies, like in LASEPA. LASEPA is Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency. Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA. It was established in 1st of November 1996 by virtue of LASEPA Edict number 9 of 1996, now called Environment Management Protection Law 2007 Part 6. Now, it's a parastatal of Lagos State Ministry of Environment, and major functions include, they may have other functions. Major functions include monitor and control of all forms of environmental pollution, e-waste and hazardous waste management, issuing environmental permits, and then accredit consultants, report environmental incidents, and then collect sample and perform tests of any substance found in suspected premises. They also conduct enforcement. They do tests. The SEPA office is the place that you need to visit. They have labs. Okay, they go to the field and they do a lot of things. So long as with the intent of actually controlling or monitoring and protecting the environment of Lagos State. Okay, so this is where we are going to end the lecture. Apart from this this lecture video, I'm going to send also some materials. Okay, I'm going to send you some material. For example, the Nostra Act. I'm going to send you for that so that you can have a thorough review of the Nostra Act. Then the Nezra Act also I will send to you, and then one or two other information I will send to you for further reading, and then so that you'll be able to enrich your knowledge as far as this topic is concerned. All right, thank you so much. And this might actually be the last, or this might actually be the last lecture I'm going to give you. And then at the end of this lecture, also, I'm going to give you a term paper. Okay, the term paper will be accessed to the LMS. So you have three term papers, each for each topic, and then they form part of the assessment. They have deadlines. Okay, please don't make sure that you keep the deadlines, and then submit as appropriate. Because if you meet the deadline, if you submit on the deadline, even if you get the whole thing, you have lost everything. So try and meet the deadline and then submit. I promise I'm going to grade it very well, and then we will proceed from there. Thank you so much, and God bless you.